What is going on, Headliner Nation? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there. Today we're talking about some names we just don't love. No, we're not saying that these guys are just going to suck in 2020 fantasy football. No, it may be ADP. It may be a change in situation. It may be that they just got some chips stacked against them, and we're really not ready to take that risk on them here this year for fantasy football. Now, myself and Kyle have been sprinkling these nuggets of information all throughout the channel for the last few months, but now that we're in the bulk of draft season, a lot of people getting ready to head into their fantasy football drafts, I figured I'd do a little bit of a recap, video here of some of the names we've talked about throughout the offseason that we just don't love. I did a video similar to this last week about players that we do love, so make sure you go check that one out if you haven't yet by the time this video is over. But today, some names we just don't love. I got some quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends, and we're going to get right into the quarterbacks here first. Now, it's really hard to not love a lot of quarterbacks here in 2020 fantasy football, but I don't really find much of a point or a purpose to doing one of these shows just to tell you that, hey, me and Kyle, not big fans of Mitchell Trubisky this year. Why? I don't know if anybody's a real big fan of Mitchell Trubisky here this year, but there are a few names we've talked about over the past few months. First one being Ryan Tannehill, somebody who really helped a lot of teams down the stretch of 2019. He played absolutely great the second half of 2019 when given the opportunity in Tennessee. But this is still a run-heavy offense, and if you go back and really look at the numbers of one Ryan Tannehill, and I'm going to have a link down below in the description to a video that Kyle did where he really broke him down in depth, Ryan Tannehill was super dependent on the deep ball and that deep ball connection with A.J. Brown. Now, yeah, sure, that connection, it's still going to be there, but it's no longer going to be a surprise to opposing defenses who can now game plan and scheme against it. If they do try to take away A.J. Brown, Ryan Tannehill may be somebody that, really doesn't have, every week value. Maybe as a bye-week fill-in at that time, possibly. But outside of that, not somebody who we're just anxious to go out there and throw as our quarterback one here in 2020, which I know a lot of you guys know that already. But like I said, there's a lot of great quarterbacks here in fantasy football. Ryan Tannehill is a name that a lot of people remember because of the end of 2019. I just don't want you to remember the end of 2019 and assume that's where he picks off to start 2020. That's why I want to make sure I included him here in this video. Aaron Rodgers may catch a few people by surprise, I guess. It's the name value, right? Aaron Rodgers has been a fantasy viable quarterback for decades, it feels like. And I'm not going to say that he's going to have a bad year. However, it's another one of those years where they're going to be heavy running game. They drafted A.J. Dillon. They still have Jamal Williams, Aaron Jones. They're going to utilize those guys. The fewer weapons on the outside, Rodgers is kind of used to that, right? But his number 2 is Allen Lazard. Yeah, you got Davante Adams, but is that going to be enough for Aaron Rodgers to go out there and put up huge numbers? No, probably not. He was very disappointing for a lot of people last year. Yes, that has to do a little bit because Davante Adams went down with an injury. However, he's just kind of been hit or miss, right? He's not somebody who you can rely upon weekly, and he still holds a lot of name value. You want to make sure that that name value isn't something you just buy into during your fantasy football drafts. He's just not what he used to be in this style of offense, not one that really focuses on running the ball first, which they're going to do once again here in 2020. So Aaron Rodgers, not somebody who we're interested in owning either this year. What about running backs? Now, on Kyle's side, he's talked about a few running backs he's not a huge fan of, most recently being Dalvin Cook. Now, don't forget, we may be some of the biggest Dalvin Cook truthers on planet Earth. At least we were in 2019. But 2020, it's his ADP, right? It's his price. You're having to take him at the 5th overall pick. Last year, the reason we loved him so much is because he was a value on draft day. Now, you're taking him, in the first round. You're reliant on him weekly. He's somebody that needs to help carry your team and be the cornerstone of your team. And he's racked up some injuries over the years, right? And if he's your running back 2, that's fine. You can deal with that if he only plays 14 games. But as your running back 1, you really got to try to limit that risk a little bit, especially with some of the other options around him. It's not like he's the last available running back there at the 5th overall pick. I would much rather have Derrick Henry. So between the draft day price, the racking up of the injuries and all the other guys that are surrounding him at that point of the draft, I just don't feel it's a very safe pick. And it's somebody who we really don't love to draft at that ADP here this year. He also talked about Melvin Gordon just a few weeks ago also. And heck, I think he even brought it up when he signed with Denver that we need to really pay attention to how he acclimates playing in that altitude as a running back. Because it's a little bit different than what he's used to at sea level with the San Diego or Los Angeles Chargers. I mean, this is something that, they've already come out and said, hey, we're not going to commit to just Melvin being our number one. Phillip Lindsay is going to be involved. Is that just to start until Melvin, really gets his legs underneath him? Is that going to be what it's going to be like all year long? We really don't know, but Phillip Lindsay is going to be involved. But Melvin Gordon has always been one of those guys that really needs volume, right? He's pretty inefficient with his touches, and he pretty much has been for the most part of his career. He's really relied upon that volume. If he doesn't get that volume, it's going to be very disappointing for a lot of his owners. Plus, they got a lot of weapons in the passing game, right? Not just Phillip Lindsay out of the backfield, but you got Courtland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, Albert O, Noah Fant, Drew Lock, who we expect to take a step forward this year. Melvin Gordon could be a decent flex play from week to week. He's going to have some good games. But somebody that you want to start every single week and be reliant upon, we got our reasons to kind of pass on Melvin Gordon here in 2020. From my side, there's a few guys that I've talked about too, Aaron Jones being one of them, right? Now, we're paying that heavy price tag on draft day for Aaron Jones because of what he did in 2019. Something that we kind of called in 2019, right? We had him as a must-have last season, and he really paid off for a lot of people, but now they drafted A.J. Dillon. He's a lot more expensive there, and Green Bay just can't commit to him in that backfield for whatever reason it is. It's just something that is, eluded to him for years, regardless of who the coach is. Same thing is going for Matt LaFleur, though. I mean, bringing in A.J. Dillon, already having Jamal Williams, we have to expect there's going to be some type of touchdown regression, right? We don't expect this guy to go out and get almost 20 touchdowns every single year. So if that's the case, I don't want to overpay this year. And in a year like this, with this offseason and the additions that they've made, I'm not willing to bet that, Aaron Jones goes out there and repeats his 2019 performance. So I'm not really on the love wagon here for Aaron Jones. Chris Carson. Love the talent and the opportunity of Chris Carson. I love how Pete Carroll is so committed to him, despite the fumbling issues and the injuries. What I don't like, though, is the hip injury that he's coming off of. He is a running back in the NFL, and the last time I checked, I know I have said this numerous times. If you're a running back, almost 90% of the time that you touch the ball, he's going to get hit in that hip or land on that hip. That is a problem. They've brought in Carlos Hyde. They've drafted DJ Dallas. They still have Travis Homer. We expect DK Metcalf to take a step forward in this passing offense. I mean, it's really just a bunch of question marks. I know he's not overly expensive on draft day, but if you kind of go wide receiver, heavy early, and then you're kind of reliant on Chris Carson late, it worries me just due to that hip injury because we haven't been able to see him much here this offseason. Lastly is maybe the most important one, and a lot of people just can't seem to figure out why we don't like CEH. And don't get me wrong, we like CEH, we like the landing spot, we like the talent overall. We don't like the ADP. He had no rookie camp. He had no training camp. Or at least an abbreviated training camp. He had no preseason games. And now everybody wants to start taking him above the likes of a Derrick Henry, heck, even a Dalvin Cook, a Nick Chubb, a Josh Jacobs. I've seen people take CEH over Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott, Alvin Kamara, and I just don't get it. Yeah, the kid has potential, but in a year like this, if you're not playing in Dynasty, I'm not interested in Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's just too unproven. Yes, obviously, the running back of the Chiefs has huge value, but I'm still not 100% sold that to start the season, DeAndre Washington isn't just somewhat involved, maybe a little bit even. And like I said, it's a big risk for the possible reward. Who are you passing on to take Clyde Edwards-Helaire? You're passing on the likes of, like I said, a Derrick Henry, a Nick Chubb, a Josh Jacobs. I mean, are their ceilings that much lower? I mean, I would say that their risk is a lot less, and if it's me in the first round, I would rather have the less risk. Now, if CEH does fall to the second round in your draft, I have no issues with it if he's your running back too. None whatsoever. However, as my first round pick, my number one running back, I'm not going to spend it on CEH, not in a year like we've had here this year. If this was a normal year with normal preseason games, normal rookie and training camps, then yes, maybe. because that's what, Kareem Hunt got, right? He got all that, and everybody wants to continue to bring up that. Well, yeah, his first NFL touch wasn't week 1 like it will be for CEH. That's why just don't love him here this year. On to the wide receivers. For Kyle, one of the first ones he mentioned was Adam Thielen, somebody we just talked about not that long ago, and it's a mixture, right? He's over 30 years old. He's had some health questions in the past, and now with no Stephon Diggs there, he really, is going to garner a lot of the attention from opposing defenses. Yes, sure, Justin Jefferson could definitely grow into that number 2 role and demand some defensive attention, but to start the year, Adam Thielen is going to go out there and get a lot of defensive coverage, and as of right now, his ADP has him as wide receiver 10 overall. For a top 10 wide receiver, just a little bit too much risk there for Kyle. DJ Moore, same thing. We love DJ Moore in Dynasty. If you're playing Dynasty, you need to grab DJ Moore, but for redraft, there's just some question marks, right? Yeah, he's somewhat expensive on draft day, but now the weapons in Carolina, we already know about Christian McCaffrey. They have Curtis Samuel. We've talked about Ian Thomas. They have Robbie Anderson. Can Teddy Bridgewater go out there and supply all these guys? Is Teddy going to rely more on Christian McCaffrey checking down? Is Curtis Samuel going to eat up the underneath routes? Is DJ Moore going to be reliant on huge plays? All questions that you can ask that have some, legitimate concerns. Nobody can really go out there and answer those questions. Yes, the talent is there, but with the new offense and a new quarterback, new weapons, just going to pass on DJ Moore. Lastly, A.J. Brown, somebody who we talked about when we mentioned Ryan Tannehill, right? Somebody who is in a run-first offense and is very big play dependent. I mean, this guy had some huge plays in 2019, and I'm sure he will again in 2020. However, they may be a little bit more few and far between because now defenses can game plan against him. If you don't think that opposing defenses aren't going to put a safety over the top of A.J. Brown and force him to beat double teams on a weekly basis, I think you're sorely mistaken. Who else in that offense, maybe outside of the tight end position, and Jonnu Smith is going to command that defensive attention? A.J. Brown's going to have a lot of eyes on him this year, and if he can't, go out there and reproduce those huge big plays pretty frequently, and where his ADP is at, you could be disappointed. So we have him on the do not love list here for 2020. On my side, Courtland Sutton's the first one we're going to talk about. I loved Courtland Sutton before the draft, and then the additions of Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, Albert O. You already have Noah Fant there. We talked about Gordon and Lindsey a little bit earlier. What type of target share does he get? Does he go out there and get wide receiver 1-esque targets? I mean, possibly, but they aren't going to be solely reliant on him. They really had nobody else second half of the year outside of a rookie tight end in Noah Fant. Everything else was going the way of Courtland Sutton. Remember, Emmanuel Sanders was shipped off to San Francisco. Sutton was one of the only shows in town, and it showed because the guy played great. Now, we do expect Drew Lock to take a step forward, but they're going to have to spread the ball around, and we expect a heavy dose of the running game. It could lead to Courtland Sutton be a little bit more touchdown dependent. And if he is, he's going to have a lot of boom or bust weeks. Amari Cooper, do I really need to go in depth on him? I basically have a few times here this offseason. Link is in the description, but the guy is just boom or bust, right? He's probably going to win you your fantasy matchup or lose you your fantasy matchup every single week. And on average, he has about 4 to 5 huge games a season that really inflate his overall stats to make it look like he did better than what he really did. The guy is just super inconsistent and not somebody who I can trust. Now they added CeeDee Lamb. They already have Michael Gallup, who's looking great, and they got Zeke in the backfield. I mean, so now he's losing possible targets, and he was already inefficient and inconsistent. I can't buy Amari Cooper either here in 2020. He's on my do not love list. Now for the tight end position, beggars can't really be choosers, right? I mean, you got the top 3, the top 4 tight ends, then after that, it's anybody's ball game, so you can't really be nitpicking at the tight end position. For Kyle, not a big fan of Tyler Higbee. Now, we saw him dominate the end of 2019, and now you can kind of see it in an inflated ADP. A lot of people buying at the high value right now, but don't forget, Gerald Everett was not involved in this offense to end the season, and Tyler Higbee's splits when Gerald Everett was on the field and off the field are completely different. You didn't hear about Tyler Higbee to start the season. That's because he was splitting snaps with one Gerald Everett. So now with Gerald Everett coming back, we could see the beginning of 2019 type of Tyler Higbee. So you don't want to overbuy and buy too high, a little bit more boom or bust. For me, it's Evan Ingram, right? I mean, nothing against the talent. The dude is like a wide receiver in a tight end's body. but he just can't stay on the field. He cannot stay out there and stay healthy, and they have other options in that offense. You got Saquon Barkley in the backfield, Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard, Golden Tate. They have other, areas to throw the ball to. And yes, Daniel Jones looked great at times last year, and I'm sure he will this year. But Evan Ingram is just not somebody who I can count on being on the field for at least 14 games. Dude, give me 14 games and I'd be happy. There's just no guarantee of that. He hasn't proven that in the past. And for me, there's other options in the similar area of your drafts that have the same type of upside, right? Because like I said, you got the top 3, the top 4, the Kelseys, the Kittles, the Ertz, the Andrews. And then after that, anybody can finish 5th here this year. Personally, there's some other guys with less question marks that I would take over Evan Ingram. So there's a few of the guys we just don't love here in 2020 fantasy football. And like I said at the beginning, no, we don't say these guys are just going to suck this year, because they can still have solid years. They just may be a disappointment to what a lot of people are looking at them to be. Just a reminder though, we've gone in depth on a few of these names. If you're looking for more detailed information, scroll down to the description, because anybody who we've broken down in depth, there's going to be a link to that player in the description, so make sure you check that out. The channel continues to grow. The season, right around the corner. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, because we are on the road to 100,000 subscribers. It's a goal that we have here for 2020. Listen, 2020 has been a crappy year for a lot of people, but we still got goals and we're still going to strive for them. So if you could help us out, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button if you enjoy the content, and we look forward to giving you more and more fantasy football goodness in the days to come. So hopefully you guys have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you later.